5 fights for Conor McGregor. There are 5 fights that Conor McGregor could take.
Hit me!
If set up, I believe these are the 5. I believe these are in no descending or specific or in any order. Khabib Nurmagomedov, Diaz 3, Max Holloway, a Mayweather rematch, and Paulie Malignaggi. Which of the 5 do you want to see the most?
First up, Nate Diaz 3. Second up, Paulie Malignaggi. Third up, Khabib. Fourth up, Max Holloway. And fifth up, because it's just never going to happen, Floyd Mayweather. I'm just a realist.
I think I have the exact same. I do. Yeah, I do. Look, nothing against. By the way, no disrespect to Max Holloway and his aesthetically pleasing way of fighting in the UFC, and his absolute rise to being one of the best UFC fighters. Don't get me wrong. I think if you want the best war, we're looking at Nate Diaz 3, and it's a rubber match, so it's still unfinished business.
Yeah,
like they need to clean that up. I do think Paulie Malignaggi. I don't want to see. Look, here's the thing. I want to see McGregor box again really bad. The more I really think about it, I want him to go through these motions and take everything he learned from being in a ring with Floyd Mayweather and trying to use that against somebody else. I want to see him box again badly. He can't box Gennady Golovkin. These are people right in his weight class, by the way. He can't box Golovkin.
Not right now, anyway.
He can't box Alvarez. Like, he can't box Andre Ward. Like, these aren't guys. He's not going to drop 30 pounds and box Lomachenko. That would probably end up bad. Malignaggi's a bit different because Malignaggi's been out of the game for a little bit too. And there's some unfinished business there.
Yeah. That was Malignaggi's, undoubtedly his game plan. Britton and I disagreed with it a little bit. I think Britton had the thought that Malignaggi came in with good intentions and the videos that surfaced painted him in a bad light, blah, blah, blah. Like that, it sounds pretty valid. My thought is that Malignaggi, as soon as he saw the window, had an idea of potentially making himself a good amount of dollars because he's been out the fight game for a little bit. And he's a worthy champion, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But
he's a good fighter.
I think that what happened at that moment is like everyone does with Conor McGregor. I've used this example time and time again, and I'll continue to use it. We sat there as Tyron Woodley put himself in the mix of a Conor McGregor fight because everyone knows it's big money.
He said yesterday.
Yeah.
He said, what's Conor gonna do? Come back to the UFC and fight me and get slapped around by me for a couple rounds? It's like
it's like a go-to. It's like the PR are prepping everyone when they go into a conference. Like, all right, you got to do this, this, and this. And by the way, if you can, drop a hint that you don't like McGregor. Because if you get that fight, it's going to be huge. And that's what I think Paulie Malignaggi had. McGregor was in Vegas for 35 seconds and Malignaggi was in his face.
That's true. I thought that was interesting.
You get bars, kinda.
He keeps saying, and then he met with Floyd Mayweather and he's suckers. I like Paulie Malignaggi overall, especially.
Is he from New Jersey?
He's from Brooklyn.
Sounds that way.
So no, not from New Jersey. So my thing is, I think he did probably come in with, even if he came in with the intention, let's just speculate, which I don't love to do all that much. Let's say he came with the intentions, Malignaggi, that he wanted to use this for his own press-related reasons. Doesn't mean his intentions weren't terrible.
No, not at all.
It still means he could have walked in that door and said, I want to make Conor able to fight Floyd. And also for my own gain, because a lot of people do look out for their own, especially in a sport dominated by promotion, whether it be UFC or boxing. I think he did probably come in with good intentions. Now, how they got from point A of good intentions to point B of hugging Floyd and getting a 50-0 signed.
B for balls.
B for balls. Where's your balls, Conor? How they got to point B obviously was a very, very roller coaster road. Since we started talking about that tape, since day one when the tape came out and the discussion of it, it's wrong for McGregor and McGregor's camp to release that kind of shite. It is equally wrong for it also did, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say equally wrong, it made Paulie Malignaggi not look so great because a lot of the tape, I think some of those instances were true. I think in the sparring sense, you don't, unwritten rules of sports and stuff like that, don't give out, don't make your sparring partner look bad. That guy's on the line for you. So Malignaggi, you already have, the point of this is you already have the beef, you already have what would be good press conferences and potentially an equally competitive fight that I would give McGregor more than a 1% chance, but still obviously side with the boxer in a boxing situation. The other one that we just haven't talked about, Francis, is Khabib, which we've talked about in the past, being this guy goes to the ground. We've seen McGregor lose on the ground. It's always the strategy. McGregor's 2 weaknesses. He has 2 weaknesses, 2 things he can't do. He can't fight on the ground, which is not necessarily true. He's lost that way, but doesn't mean he can't learn. And 2, you get him to the 5th round. Get him to the 5th round. We just saw what he did against Floyd. He died in at minute 2 in round 10. He'll never have the conditioning. Those are the 2 glaring Conor weaknesses that every surface level viewer of the UFC or boxing could ever point out. There's more strengths and there's more weaknesses to Conor McGregor's game that he never gets credit for still to this day. I do think Khabib's an interesting fight, and I think it's the one UFC fight he could lose. I think he would definitely beat Nate Diaz a 3rd time, especially after Floyd.
Yeah, I want to see the Diaz fight. The Khabib fight would be interesting regardless. I think Khabib is a more dangerous opponent than Nate Diaz to be.
He'd be mentally ready for it.
Yeah, no doubt. He's been waiting for it the whole time. But one point that I did want to address that I still, to this day, hear as the go-to argument for why Conor McGregor is not all that he's made out to be, right? Is this argument that his belt. He doesn't defend his belts, one of them, but his stamina is always in question and his ground game is in question, right? And most of this comes from people who are comparing him to the other athletes in the sport that don't have as many weaknesses as that. Floyd Mayweather fought at the same weight class all his life, right? So that immediately makes him a consistent boxer in that weight class, and rightfully so, one of the best of all time. And then when you look at it, the UFC, when you're comparing it to fighters that are consistently so hard to beat and don't have these weaknesses, like you can't just avoid the fact that Conor McGregor goes up and down weight classes and tries to defend his belt at those weight classes, because it's a different, if Conor McGregor was to stay at the weight class that he was at when he came in, when he demolished Jose Aldo, when he smacked down Chad Mendes, who had him on the ground the whole time, when he demolished those fighters in that class, if he was to stick around there, then he wouldn't have any of those weaknesses, because his weakness was a result of him moving up and down a weight class. He moves up a weight class, he doesn't prepare as well for it, he gets a second shot, he proves that he's able to do it. The Nate Diaz argument as to why Nate Diaz is going to be able to beat him because he was embarrassed on the ground, like, yeah, it was partly because, I'm not making excuses for him, is when you step outside your comfort zone, your weaknesses become more apparent because you're fighting in a different realm. So if the guy was to stick around in his own weight class and just be there and control it and not be the Conor McGregor that actually is one of the most captivating fighters because he wants to experiment, then yeah, if he still had those weaknesses in that weight class, I would admit it. But it just seems to me like it's just an easy way to diminish the guy's accomplishments by being like, oh, well, see, he gave up again. He went into a boxing ring and fought for double the amount of rounds that he has to fight in MMA. Yeah, the rounds are longer. You can always make excuses.
Breaks are shorter.
Breaks are shorter, blah, blah, blah. Like, he went into another realm that was outside of his comfort zone and held up well. That's all there is to it. He lost to the best, arguably one of the best of all time. But in my point as to get back from the rant, what I would like to see maybe with the Paulie Malignaggi fight is, one, I don't think it happens immediately, because if Dana White is intelligent, and he is, we know this, he's going to try and drag him back into the sport which has been outnumbered by boxing since Conor McGregor moved away from it. So he's going to want to get him back in order to get those pay-per-view numbers, to get those buys, to get those fans again, and everybody would turn up to see a Nate Diaz 3. I don't know if you'd captivate the same amount of audience on the back of a Mayweather fight like that audience that we just seen if he was to fight Khabib. I think it would be the Alvarez type of audience, which was still great, but it's not Nate Diaz, because it's that, you mentioned that you've got the built-in rubber match that everyone wants to see.
Well, there's a storyline there, so I do think Nate is the fight to make. Besides the fact that, look, Nate Diaz and Conor can talk all they want about money, the fight will happen at some point, in my opinion, because they both have Dana White so far back into the corner. They have Dana White exactly as Floyd Mayweather had Conor with 2 minutes left in round 10. That's pretty much it. They're a punch away from knocking Dana White out. And they're a punch away from that fight being over, because Dana White, regardless what you say, has very little leverage with McGregor and with Diaz after what just happened. He has to find a way, and I think he's capable of doing this, because I do think Dana White is the part of the reason the UFC got to where it is. But now he's at this intersection, this major speed bump in the middle of this intersection, because you lost John Jones. You have to drop the gauntlet on John Jones. So you lost the guy that was going to go through the prime of his career, if he could prove it, to be one of the greatest ever and captivate like he did against Daniel Cormier. Then You lost the fight that was going to potentially be 2 or 3 absolute 1 million pay-per-view headliners in Jones versus Lesnar. That could have possibly broke records. Jones versus Gustafsson a second time. That could have gotten over 1 million pay-per-views. Conor and Nate are your only guaranteed million pay-per-view buy. And here's the thing I'm going to say. Now, this is an unfair, it's actually a logical flaw to compare these two, because I think the HBO fight obviously was only half the price on Saturday between Cotto and Kamagai.
Yeah.
That fight did, if I read correctly, 825,000 viewers. Just keep in mind, before you keep claiming that the UFC has absolutely crushed boxing, and I go back and forth between the years, I try to compare it year by year, case by case. 825,000 viewers is going to be more, and I mean a lot more, than whatever UFC 216 gets. And that was on the same night in California as Mayweather McGregor, where they have reported over 100 million people have illegally streamed the fight, and obviously I think over 5 million bought it on pay-per-view, and then you add in Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. So yeah, boxing is in the exact position it wants to be heading into the biggest actual fight. Actually, I'll take that back. Mayweather McGregor was the biggest fight, the most important fight of the year in Alvarez versus Golovkin. Dana White's not in a good position. Deadspin is trying to call a spade and said the UFC is fucked. Now, I don't think they're fucked. I just think you need to put Diaz McGregor on the books, but you also have to deal with Conor's medical suspension for, I think it's 3 months, which is absolutely normal. And then you better start hoping that some of these stars start showing up, that you get somebody as wild as Conor, as crazy as Nate to start bringing the masses together. And there will be one, by the way. It just might take a couple of years. There will be another star. It's not like they've had trouble.
Well, it's opened the window for it now.
Yeah, there will be another star. It's just going to take time.
It'll be a cold Christmas for Dana.
It will be. They could have had GSP Bisping, as much as it should be interesting, it ain't doing 1.5 million pay-per-view buys. It ain't doing 825,000 HBO viewers on the same night as Conor.